Again, welcome to today's session. My name's Nadine Reynolds and I'm a financial wellbeing consultant for Better with Money. We are an independent company who provides financial education through the workplace to reduce money stress, and I'm going to be your presenter for today. So just before we start, I just want to do a little bit of a legal bit. So it's just a bit of housekeeping. The webinar is providing information only. It is not financial advice. So Better with Money is not connected to any other organisation, and you won't be when we don't receive commission from any other company. So if I do mention companies along the way throughout today's webinar, it's because we genuinely believe that they offer a good service and that they have value for money which you can take advantage of. So throughout today's seminar today, like Fiona said, it's going to be about 25 minutes long. You do have the opportunity to ask questions in the chat box, so please pop them in there. We'll try and ask them. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So anything you want to ask, please don't go away from today's session with a question unanswered. Again, you can send it privately or you can send it to everybody if you wish to. But this is your opportunity to ask any questions around this subject. So what we're going to be covering today is good borrowing versus bad borrowing, the importance of building a good credit score, what to look out for and what to avoid when we're looking at lending and borrowing, how we borrow and pay back money wisely. And again, we'll go over any questions in the Q&A session towards the end of the session. Okay, then, so let's get cracking. So let's begin with helping with, what is the difference between good versus bad borrowing? So firstly, it's important to say that borrowing money can be a normal part of managing our finances, such as getting student finance to go to university, getting a mortgage to buy a house, or, to finance things like cars, it may be phones, which we can pay off monthly, as this is a more affordable way of doing it than paying it all up front. Borrowing doesn't have to be a bad thing as long as we do it sensibly and we can afford to make the repayments each month. However, borrowing can become stressful if it does start to get out of control and if you start to struggle with the monthly repayments. So let's look at ways to avoid getting into bad debt and be more savvy with our borrowing. So for those times in our lives when we do need to borrow money, we have to apply to a lender. So whether it's for a mortgage, a credit card, a loan, or some sort of finance on an item, we at the age of 18, we get credit reference agencies in the UK. So we all get put on the credit reference agency. So there's 3 here in the UK. We've got Experian, Equifax and TransUnion. And what they do is they start to build a file on us about any accounts that we apply for. So whether it be bank accounts, whether it's loans, a lot of utilities are on there, gas, electric, water, council tax. Our credit file holds information about us for the last 6 years. So when we apply for credit, we sign an application form which gives the lender permission to check this information that's held on our credit reference files. This information allows the lender to assess whether they think we are a responsible borrower and whether they are going to lend us the money and how likely we are to pay that money back and for them to get that money back that they've lent us. If the information about us shows that we are a responsible borrower, then this can have many benefits. Firstly, we'll have a much better chance of being accepted for that credit, loan, credit card, loan, finance, whatever it is. And a good track record also means that we're likely to qualify for the best interest rates. So we'll pay lower finance charges on our credit balances. The less money we're paying interest, the faster we pay off the debt and the more money you have for other expenses. So when it comes to 0% credit card deals, we're likely to get a longer 0% period if we've got a good credit score, and we'll get approved for higher credit limits too. It's also worth mentioning that more and more landlords are now looking at credit history as part of their tenant screening process. So the better your credit history, the easier it will be to get approved to rent. A bad credit history, especially if you've had previous evictions or outstanding rental balances, can severely damage your chances of getting a rented accommodation. And we all know it's quite a competitive market. So, they're going to be looking at the best qualified person that they want to rent that house out there. So having your credit score in tip-top condition is the best thing to be doing. So insurance companies also use credit history information to develop your insurance risk score. So with a good risk score, you'll typically pay less for insurance than a similar person with a lower credit score. And really importantly, many employers are using credit checks as part of the application process too. So many law and finance companies have to do it, but other sectors are following suit. So they do it not only to confirm your identity, because they can use it as an identity check, they're also using it to check your trustworthiness with money, particularly if that's a key requirement of a position. If what they see suggests you might not be suitable for the role, you could be turned down for a job. And as a consequence, a bad credit history can hold back your career. So it's really worth mentioning that to members of your family. If there's younger members of your family, it's a conversation that not many people are aware of, that it can affect your ability to seek a role if you have got a bad credit history. Employers do need your permission to check your financial history, and they'll only perform a soft check, which means that they'll have an initial look at the information that's on your credit report. But the fact that they've looked won't be visible to other companies. With a soft search, you can only see them on your report, and it doesn't matter how many they are on there. But hard credit searches are where they are visible on your report to other companies. And these are the searches that are done by lenders when you actually make an application for credit. So there are lots of benefits here to having a really good credit score that a lot of us are not aware of. So on to the important bit. What is your credit score and why is it so important? So your credit score is a numerical representation of what is in your credit file. So you can see how you are viewed by the providers, the lenders, the credit providers. If you haven't checked your score before, it is freely available through apps such as Credit Karma, Experian and ClearScore, and it doesn't affect your credit score to have one of these apps or to look at it. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up, and please don't pay for the services because you don't need to. The apps that are on screen are ClearScore, Credit Karma and Experian, free of charge. So with it, once you've downloaded, it will tell you whether you're in an excellent, good, fair, or needs improving. And you'll see that very clearly because you'll see an indication as in a number, you'll see it as an indication as a colour. So if you're on red, that's poor, but then up to bright green, that means you're excellent. And you'll also see it in a word as well. So you'll be very clear of what your credit score is. There are a few things that you can do to make sure your score is as good as it can be. The first thing is, and it sounds counterintuitive, but is to use a credit card regular and to pay it off in full each month, as this will start to build your credit history. I'm not saying use a credit card to buy things that you don't usually need, just for things that you would be buying anyway, such as food as petrol. Put the money aside to pay it off. So it's the money that you'll be spending anyway. And it's really important that you pay the credit card bill by the deadline date each month on time, as the lenders want to see that you are a responsible borrower and never miss a payment. So what it is about credit, and people say, well, I've never had any credit, so my credit score will be good. That's not the case. A credit score is an indication of what your behavior is when you're dealing with credit, and the credit card providers or loan providers need to see that you are able to borrow money responsibly and pay that back responsibly, and that's what that score indicates. And another way to think of it is when I worked in the banking industry, I had many people come in to me and say, I've got no credit, I've got no debt, I should easily get a mortgage. That is not the case. Why would a mortgage lender lend you £250,000 if they don't know how you'll deal with £250 on a credit card? So they need to see your ability to deal with credit, to deal with debt, and to pay it back. I hope that makes sense. So, if you are paying off these credit cards on a regular basis, you can set up a direct debit to ensure that happens. So that means you don't miss any payments and you don't pay late. Because if you do miss a payment, it will stay on your credit file for 6 years, and it could reduce your credit score by as much as 35%. So have a look at how much credit you use. As well, this is a really key indicator, because lenders prefer to see that you are not using too much of the credit limit available, as this may suggest that you are already living beyond your means. So if you've got a credit limit of £1,000 and you're up to that limit every single month, that might show that you are reliant on credit and that you're not dealing with your money correctly. So you will get a better score if you use less than 25% of the credit limit that's available. So that has a really positive impact if you stay within those realms. Making sure you're on the electoral roll for the property you live in will make a big difference too, as is how many lenders will verify your identity and make sure you live where you say you do. And you can boost your score by as much as 100 points by doing this action alone. Also, having a long running bank account will also improve your score by as much as 15%. So although we're told to switch and get good deals, keeping at least one going is a good thing. So just keeping one bank account for a long period of time and showing that you're loyal to that bank. The other great thing about these apps is that you can also switch on notifications, which will tell you every time something about your report changes, which is a great way of ensuring that there's no fraudulent activity with your finances. You can also use the app to see which credit cards and loans that you might be eligible for based on your circumstances. Or there's a really good eligibility calculator on Money Saving Expert. So always use an eligibility calculator before applying for credit. This is what the eligibility checker does. It gives you an indication of what you may be eligible for and what you may be accepted for. And again, that is just a soft search, because once you go in for a full application for a credit card, loan, mortgage, that will be a hard search on your credit file, and it will mark your credit file and bring your points down. So if you haven't done so already, please download one of the apps, the free apps. So again, that's ClearScore, Credit Karma, Experian, because the better you score, the more options you will have available to you to manage your debt. Now, just a little summary of what we've got on here. And if you can look back at this webinar later at a later date, this is a really good tool to be doing. So in order to make it easy to see what you need to do to keep your credit score as good as possible, these are the tips that we've brought together on this slide. So after the webinar, see how many of the boxes you can cross. The more you do, the better your credit score will become. And the best thing is that once you've registered for the free credit score apps, it literally takes about 30 seconds out your day to check it regularly. And it's a small money habit that can make a big financial difference. Now, I know we've had a question about credit scores, and I am going to answer this while we talk about credit score. So what information are visible on the soft checks versus the hard check? So when it is a soft check, it is just somebody coming in and looking at your credit file to get some information off that. So it doesn't mark your credit file. It isn't you as an individual. When you check your credit score, you will be able to see if someone's done a soft search, but others will not be able to see that. So for example, if you applied for an actual credit card and then you decided you didn't want it, and then a week later you applied for another credit card, both those credit card providers will be able to see that you've been applying for credit cards because you've done a hard search, you've done a hard application. So a hard application is when other people can see that you have applied for products or you have got products under your name. And then should I ask for the highest available limit to help my credit score? Not necessarily. Because they will give you a limit anyway. You can ask for the highest limit if you wish to, and then just stay within that 25% kind of bracket to make it look like you're not reliable on that credit. So it's entirely up to you. If you need that highest limit because you're buying something or you're going to purchase something, then you may need it, but that is a personal decision. But if you are right up to your limit on a credit card, as long as you're paying that down and you're bringing the balance down every month, your credit score will improve month on month. So don't be too worried about that. But if you do get a credit card to build your credit score, just stay in that 25% limit. I hope that might make sense. If it doesn't, I'll go a little bit more in depth on that at the end if you just drop a message in the chat box. Right then, so let's have a look at borrowing and paying back money wisely. So once you know your score, then it becomes a lot easier to manage any borrowing that you may have built up or could build up in the future. When you borrow money, it could be a secured debt or an unsecured debt. So let's look at the difference. So unsecured lending. So lending, that is lending with no possessions or equity placed against the loan. So if you defer on a loan or a credit card, it's your credit score and your financial health that is affected if you cannot repay the loan. So if you cannot repay the loan, this may make it harder to get lending in the future, and it make financial facilities, a lot harder to be able to obtain or get in the future. Secured lending. So this is where lending against an asset such as a car or a home, and the item can be taken from you if you do not keep up repayments on that lending. So that's unsecured and secured lending. At this point, I also like to explain APR. So APR stands for annual percentage rate, and you've probably heard about APR, and you definitely will have done if you've got any sort of lending. And this is the interest that you will pay if you have a balance plus any standard fees that apply. So every card and loan has to declare the APR, including the standard fees, so it will make it easier for you to work out which debt is costing you more. So the annual percentage rate should be shown on your statement if it's a credit card or a loan. And this is how financial services make money from lending for you. That's how they get that money back, by charging you an APR. So usually the APR, or the interest rate offered against secured loans, is lower than what's against unsecured loans, as it's less risky for the lender, because, as I said before, with a secured loan, they've got an asset that they can take from you or recoup some of the value from you if you stop paying. So the reason that unsecured loans are a lot higher rate is because there's no asset that they can take from you. So, at the moment, a secured type of lending is a mortgage. So a mortgage have interest rates of around, between 4 and 6. So this is secured because they can take the home from you. Low interest loans are around, 5 and 8%, and store cards and credit cards can be from 20% up to 40%. And I've even seen some credit cards that absolutely smash the ceiling of that. American Express, they've got absolutely extortionate interest rates. And, overdrafts, they can be around 40% interest rate on those. But remember, the higher the APR, the worse it is for you as a borrower, and it will cost you more to pay it back. So if you find that you have existing lending and you wish to pay it off, it's usually a good rule of thumb to use savings to pay off high interest rates. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit more depth, why we would do that. So there's an example on the screen. So say you had £1,000 on a credit card and it was at 20% interest. You'll be charged approximately £200 of interest a year, assuming as you've got that constant balance of £1,000. And we do this way just for easy maths. Now, if you had £1,000 savings in a 3%, savings account, you'd only earn £30 a year. So you would be better off £170 a year by repaying the card using the savings, rather than keeping it in the savings accounts. That's why I always say that savings will always be at a lower rate than what you would ever be paying in debt. So just consider that if you can do. But if you are not in a position to pay off debt with savings, then there are lots of other ways that you may consider to take control of the borrowing that you already have. Firstly, make sure you have a visual record of what debt you have. So write it down either on a paper or on a spreadsheet, whatever works best for you, and write down the amount that you owe, the interest rate that it's due, the due date each month that you have to make the payment, because by writing them all down, you'll be able to see which have the highest interest rates, and these are the ones that you should aim to pay off first. Always pay the minimum payment required on all lending anyway by the due dates, that the dates that they're due. But if you have any extra, pay as much as you can off the most expensive borrowing, and then when these are repaid, then shift the focus onto the next highest rate card, and so on. You should always check the terms and conditions of the finance to ensure that you won't be charged a penalty for overpaying them, if this is what you choose to do. But another option is, if your credit score is good enough, you may be able to bring all your debt together under one credit card or loan to reduce the interest you're paying. So there's a couple of ways that we can do that. So the first one is to a 0% credit card deal. So this is where you apply for a new credit card to transfer the debts, the balance on other credit cards onto it. So the credit card is usually interest-free for a set period of time, but you will pay a fee to actually transfer the balance over. So it's usually about 3% if you pay a fee to transfer the balance over. But once you've done that, it's a 0% for a set period of time. The idea here is to try and pay off the debt whilst you are still in the 0% period, to avoid paying the high charges. The better your credit score, the longer the 0% deal you are likely to get. Alternatively, if that's not an option and your debt is over £5,000, you may want to look at a loan with a low interest rate. So if you are going to try and get a new credit card or loan, again, remember what I said about using the eligibility calculator, because that will just give you an indication of the cards or the loans you are most likely to be accepted for based on your circumstances. So, again, the eligibility checkers go on Money Helper, Money Saving Expert to do those. By doing either of these two options, by transferring onto a 0% deal or transferring or getting a loan to a lower interest rate, it's going to cost you less for that debt at that time and for that debt and that borrowing. So it might be something you want to look at to just try and rehash it, get it at a lower rate, because it's going to put more money back in your pocket, and it's going to cost you less each month to tackle that debt and bring it down if you needed to. Now, I do want to touch on if you are at a point where you can't manage your borrowings. It's something that you must ask for help on, because debt doesn't just happen to people in lower paid jobs, or if they're tackling, gambling or drug issues or family issues. It can affect anyone, young or old. Life can throw a curveball at us at any time, and it can throw us into debt. Now, borrowing, debt, they are similar things, but borrowing is when you're in control of it. It's something that you've had to do, whether it's a mortgage or a loan, and you're in control of that. But if you feel like your borrowing or your lending is getting out of control and that debt is having an impact on you day to day, please ask for that help. I've listed some great websites on screen that offer support and resources to access if you feel that you are in a situation that debt might be becoming of concern. These advice charities' role is to help you free of charge. Most of them have telephone lines too, giving free confidential advice, and the websites are really good as well. So it's not necessarily that you need to speak to someone or get in contact, but there's a lot of help and support on those websites as well. I want to just mention, don't be tempted to contact a company that advertises on TV or emails you about their debt services. Many of these may offer free debt help, but they will be receiving commission from lenders who are trying to sell you loans or products. And if they say they can help you to write off your debts, just be careful, because it's unlikely that they can do that. Look at what the company's promising you before you send them any money or sign any paperwork. But the ones I do, recommend are on screen now. They're free of charge. A lot of them are backed by the government. A lot of them are charities. A lot of helpful resources and tools if you feel like it may be getting out of control, or you may be going down a slippery slope with borrowing or debt. Right then, so I just want to run through some points on screen. Savvy borrowing is a really good part of a good financial plan. Again, there are things in life that we have to get in debt about, whether it's mortgages, whether it's we need a new car, whether we need a new phone. So, by tackling and understanding what good borrowing is and what bad borrowing is can really set you on a good path. It's not always a negative thing. It's something that we have to do to get on in life. So please don't worry if you have to get out borrowing or lending. As long as you can control that, as long as you can afford it, then it's something that we have to, just get on to use to get on in life. Use credit responsibly, use your lending, use the credit responsibly, make sure you're paying on time, you're not missing payments, that you're checking your credit files and understanding your credit score and working on improving it if it's not quite where you need it to be. Try and pay off debts before saving. That's really important, because debts will always be at a higher interest rate than what you're ever getting back in savings. So if you have got savings sat there and it's not really working for you, get that debt paid off, because once it's gone, you'll have extra money there to pop into savings and to get really, building those savings accounts up. Consolidate lending for lower interest rates if possible. So, if you've got different lending here, there, and everywhere, see if you can consolidate, see if you can bring that rate down, put it into, a more structured payment plan. If you get a loan to pay off all those bits of debt, then it's a structured amount each month that you can pay off. There's an end date to it, and it could possibly be a lower interest rate than what you're paying off in all those bits and bats. And especially if you've got credit card debt, see if you can put that onto a 0%, get it onto a 0% period and pay it off within that period of time you've got that 0% deal. And if debt is starting to worry you, or you're in a position where it is worrying you, please get help. There are so many help and resource tools out there if you feel like you're struggling. And again, just to reiterate, savvy borrowing is part of a good financial plan. It's not always a negative thing. We need to use it sometimes just to get on in life. So before I finish and I hand over for any questions and we go through the chat box, I just want to, reiterate the fantastic support services that are offered by ICE Spend Fund and the support network that's out there, and where they can provide financial, workplace and wellbeing support to you and your family. So please don't suffer in silence and reach out to see what help and support is available to you. So I'm just going to leave this on screen, but we're going to go to the chat box now and see if there's any questions. Right then, I'm just going to scroll up and see what we can have a look at here. So a couple of questions. Right, so let's just drill down on APR and credit cards. So a credit card or a loan will always have an APR attached to it. So an APR is how the banks and the credit card providers make money from you. So what you need to be doing is you need to be checking what your APR is on your credit card. Now, we just had a question is, as long as I pay my credit card on time, am I not charged the APR? Now, if you pay your credit card off in full every single month by the payment due date, you will not be charged an APR. But if you leave a balance on that credit card, there is a possibility, depending on the terms and conditions of that card, that you will be charged an APR. So I'm just going to give you a really practical example of this. So say I went out and I spent £500 on a holiday, and I wanted to pay that off. Sorry, let me get that right again. If I went and bought a holiday in April, and then my bill come in May and I paid that £500 off, when that bill came in May, I would not get charged any interest on that. But if I only paid £100 off that balance, and then there was £400 still left on it till the next month, I would be charged an APR on that, because there is a balance that is left on there. I hope that explains it. But if you pay your credit card off in full every month, you should not be charged an APR. But if you don't, if there is a balance that keeps ticking over month after month, you will be charged interest on that. Right, so somebody here uses Experian to get the credit score, but to get a full credit report, it's a 30-day free charge. Right, so with Experian, there is a free version or a payment version. So it is free for 30 days, but then you will pay an amount for every month after that. Now with Experian, they sometimes advertise through bank accounts or with certain credit cards, so you might be able to get a free of charge version through some products that you may already have. But the only way to see your Experian full credit report is to pay for it. There is a free of charge version, which is the you can get it free for 30 days, and then you can go to the free of charge version, but it's very limited what you can see on there. If you want your free report from Experian, you do have to pay for it monthly. So it might be that you get the free 30-day trial, then switch to the free of charge version, and then at a later date, if you want to check your score, you just pay for it and then cancel it if you needed to. But Experian do charge for it, but there is a free of charge version. But all it will show is your score and what bracket you're in. It won't give you your full report. Right, so will switching your bank account for a welcome bonus negatively affect my credit score? Your credit score will take a hit if you apply for any products, whether it's a credit card, a bank account, a loan, a mortgage. Your credit score will take a hit. Now, I've recently just done a switcher. Now, my credit score is at 999. I'm not applying for anything else at the moment. I'm not applying for any loans, credit cards, or mortgages. So I'm quite willing to take that hit on my credit score. Because I've got quite a good credit score, I think that hit I'll only take that hit for a couple of months, and then my credit score will bounce back to be 999 and excellent again. So it's entirely up to you whether you're willing to take that hit. Again, if you actually do an application for any sort of credit or lending, your credit score will take a hit. So it's up to you if you want to take that hit. Right, so somebody use IMechE. Does this still build my credit score? So any kind of lending, as long as you pay it on time, don't miss any payments, stay within those limits, and use credit responsibly, it can build your credit score. It's a very fine line from building your credit score to taking a hit to your credit score. So you've got to be very careful with that. Just stay within those limits, and by getting those apps, those Clear Score, Karma, Credit Karma, and the Experian, they will give you hints and tips to whether what's affecting your credit score and what to do to keep your credit score, whether it's excellent or to build it up. So it gives you really good hints and tips of how to do that.